So, I don't know if you saw my video from yesterday where a scammer called me and said that I was going to jail because I didn't go to jury duty and the whole drama that I went through yesterday. This bitch had the nerve to text me again and reduce my fine. I'm going to post everything here. I hope somebody reports her to some kind of authority. So you can go back, and my video from last night is entitled I'm Going to Jail, but I'll include it here. So if you see that starting, that's just a replay of what happened yesterday. I hate people. It's 10:30 and I just got home from work, or I had a few errands to run. I visited with the baby, but this is something that I have to share with you all. And it's not just for old people, it's for all people. So today was a very hectic day at work, and I had people lined up, the phones were ringing off the wall, and it was just me, and I was very busy. And right in the middle of all this chaos, I get a text message that says, "Hi, and I'm not going to give real names. I'm Mary so and so with an attorney firm called blah blah blah," which I recognize as an attorney here in Jacksonville. And she said, "Is this a good time to talk?" And I said, "Well, no, not really. Give me a few minutes, And I locked the door and I text her and I said, "Yes, I'm available to talk right now." So a minute later, my phone rings and I pick up the phone and I said, "Now, who is this?" And she says, "I'm Mary and I'm with the firm Barnes and Cohen or something like that, a Jacksonville firm. And I've been assigned to your case, as an attorney." I'm like, "For what?" And she's like, "Well, you have a warrant out for your arrest." I'm like, "For what?" And she's like, "You missed jury duty, a month or so ago, and now there's a warrant out for your arrest." I'm like, "That's crazy." I said, "I never got the, summons." And she says, "Well, we sent it to San Jose Boulevard." I said, "I never lived on San Jose Boulevard, so I never got it." She goes, "Well, despite whether you got it or not, we now have an arrest warrant for you." And I was like, "Holy shit." So I'm looking, at the phone, and I said to her, I go, "Did you say you were calling from Jacksonville?" And she says, "Yes." And I'm like, "Well, why is your area code," because I know all the area codes working on the base. I'm like, "Why is your area code in Georgia?" And she was like, "Well, I'm calling you from my personal cell phone." I said, "Aren't you supposed to call me from your firm's phone, with the firm name on it or whatever?" And she's like, "Well, I'm using my own cell phone." I'm like, "This is unacceptable. I need somebody from your firm." I'm going to hang up and you have somebody from your firm call me, back. So I hung up, and not a minute later, my cell phone rings again and I answer it. And she's like, "This is Mary's boss from XYZ law firm. How can I understand you have questions." I'm like, "Hell yeah, I have questions." I said, "I didn't know that I could go to jail for not showing up for a, jury duty, especially if I didn't get the forms or the request." And she goes, "Well, yeah, the law is that you can go to jail." And I said, "So what is it that I need to do?" And she says, "Well, you need to come down to my office and you need to sign a waiver, and we're going to help." I said, "So you're my attorney now?" And she's like, well, yes, I'm a court-appointed attorney. And I'm like, well, how much is your fee? And she's like, well, there's only a one-time fee of $786 right now. And I said, well, I work the rest of the week. I can't come to your office. And just again, I looked at the phone and it was a Georgia number. And I'm like, you're still calling me from Georgia. And this is still not the lawyer's phone number. I said, I'm going to hang up now. And so I hung up. And of course, I'm panicking. You know, I text my family. I said, I'm going to jail. I may have to sleep on the base because if I leave the base, they might come and arrest me. So anyway, I was like panicking. All of a sudden, my heart was in my throat because I don't want to go to jail. And I can't believe that this is happening. So anyway, I was like, what do I do? So I called the Duval County Courthouse, clerk of courts. And I waited like 20 minutes before this really nice man answered. And I explained to him what has happened. And he kind of chuckled and he goes, how much money did you pay them? I go, well, I didn't pay them anything. I said, my fee is $786. And he's like, well, most people pay $1,500. I'm like, really? And so he's like, you know that this is a scam, don't you? I'm like, what? A scam? I go, well, can you check to make sure, you know, that I don't have any kind of arrest? And he's like, yeah, what's your name, your birthday, and, you know, the last four of your social? I'm like, how do I know you're real? And of course, he busted out laughing. He goes, because you called me. I'm like, oh, okay. I said, so I gave him the information, and he just chuckled the whole time. He's like, there's no arrest, A. There was no summons for you to court for jury duty. And he goes, and you are lucky that you didn't pay anything because your $786 is minimal compared to what other people have been paying. And then they don't call me till after they've paid it to verify that it, you know, things were taken care of. I was so upset. You know, I hung up the phone, and the reason that I believed them, because, you know, I don't believe anybody. I doubt everybody. But the reason that I believed them is because she texted me or she emailed me the actual warrant with my name, the case number, you know, all these numbers and all this, everything, you know, like it looked really official. And so, you know, after my 3 baby aspirins to calm my heart down, you know, I called her back and I said, so what is it that you want me to do? She's like, she goes, I know that you said you work for the rest of the week, so maybe we could just do the transaction over the phone. You can give me a credit card number and we can handle this right now. I'm like, you piece of garbage. And I didn't say garbage. I said poo-poo caca in really bad language. I said, you are scum of the earth trying to scam an old lady. I said, really? I said, let me just tell you something. I have your number and I'm taking it to the sheriff's office and they are going to be your next call. She went click. So the whole point of this story is that even though you're skeptical and, you know, you don't believe anything, sometimes you do. Sometimes it looks so real, you know, but I mean, I would have never given her that kind of money. First, I don't have it. And secondly, I wouldn't have given it to her anyway. I would have gone to jail probably. But these scams are out there and they're targeting old people like you and me and maybe Nancy Guthrie. So I just want you to know to be very careful and be very skeptical because there are really bad people out there. And I really thought I was going to jail today. So that's my story. I'm going to try to get some sleep. Thanks for coming.